Hey everybody, welcome to the GMG review. Today we're taking a look at Warhammer 40,000 Codex Imperial Knights, a book near and dear to my heart, as I do have a very well-loved 40k Knight army that I built around the beginning of 8th edition. It's all based on different metal bands, and yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. They kindly sent this as a free complimentary review copy to check out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the major changes to the book and what's new and exciting in it, as opposed to just like trying to digest it on the go. There are some fairly subtle changes to it too, and a very big sort of like increase to the round by round psychic load, I would say, for the Knights. But overall, probably good for the edition and making them more, I don't want to use the word competitive, but more in tune with how the game is currently being played. So, what do we got here? Well, Screaming Faces, as always, the workshop standard for the first 2 pages. But we have a full color 136 page codex covering the giant monsters in this book. Big robots that like to stomp and kill. You can also check out my Chaos Knight review today as well, putting them firmly in the realm of this edition too. No new models in this, just the current existing models, given some new rules and kind of a spit polish as far as the overall sort of like how they fit in 9th edition. You've got an overview of all the Knight worlds and where they are from and where they live, some lovely full color art, different war zones. I wonder if this is our next war zone. Warzone Arane? Maybe, maybe not. The structure of like a house, sort of a nice look at the like internal sort of politics and stuff of the different knightly houses. And a bit more expanded background on all the different Imperial houses, and then all the different Mechanicus houses too, like House Griffith, Hawkshroud, House Mortan, Terran, and the Freeblades. Now, if anybody got the biggest level up in this, it's the Freeblades. They're real interesting now, and I'm actually kind of tempted to run House Metallum as a Freeblade house, different metal bands that have all joined together after long years on the road. And you can now functionally use a super heavy auxiliary with a Freeblade in it without having to have any burdens and stuff too. Big bits on Canis Rex, who's still the poster boy of the special character Knights. And then a nice big color section. You can see they're featuring the Chaos Knights obviously with them as a showdown, throwdown. Baby, we can't slow down. I do think that the most iconic Knights probably still are House Raven, and they're red and gold. It's a very cool looking house. When I think of the epic scale Imperial 40k Knights that are the first ones I ever saw, obviously, this is the color scheme I think of. I might actually go back and paint a bunch of what is it, Titan Legions stuff in those colors. All of the Knight stuff for Canis Rex and that are cool too. This was the Ghost Knight. I can't remember that Freeblade's name, but it has like a weird like castle mouth and was sort of like a ghost that would like haunt this like chaos world. All right, so the rules, let's jump in. What do we got? We've got Detachment Abilities, Noble Houses, Stratagems, Exalted Court, and the Army of Renown, the Freeway Lance. And this is how they've handled Freeblades now. They're not like they were fun and different and neat in the previous Knights book, but in this one, they're actually just a full Army of Renown, and there's no drawbacks to taking Freeblades. There's just different bonuses that you don't necessarily have access to when you play the Imperial Knights. The army rules, relics and warlord traits, all the teachings, match play rules. Very cool Crusade rules for going on a quest. It's very Bretonia. You swear a vow, you try and complete the vow during the games, you earn your points for your experience upgrades, and you're cool like outfitting that way. And there's lots of neat sort of like Crusade only relics that would be game-breakingly good in regular match play that are very cool in the Crusade rules. All the data sheets, and I'm going to spend some time here, not like on the individual ones, but on the equipment, because the equipment has changed fairly significantly. There's some problems in the last Knight book where certain things were just kind of default better than like the cool looking things, and they've kind of evened that out. Points in war gear, and then the glossary and stuff. So the combat patrol looks like it's going to be 3 armigers, which is neat. I mean, I honestly feel like a more expensive combat patrol, it's more in tune with the Chaos Knight army box that just came out, would be better, because that's effectively a 1,000-point army. That's like an incursion level force. This is going to run you... they're like, what, 175 each? So you're looking at 350. It's roughly 500 points, but there's no Daddy Knight. So it's just a bunch of bondsmen. It's like having a bunch of guards with no HQ. I don't know. I would have put a Knight Paladin or something in there instead. I made it a little more expensive just to have it be like the Knight and his 2 like little dudes. I feel like that would have been a better incentive to buy. All right, Detachment Abilities. What do you get? Well, Imperial Knights gain Knight Lances and Wandering Hero abilities. Then the Imperial Knights in an Imperial Knights Detachment gain the Unyielding Knight, Household Traditions, and Questor Allegiance Oaths. So, Unyielding Knight, you count as 5 models for holding objectives, or 10 if you're Titanic. Wandering Hero, if this detachment's super heavy and a Freeblade, it counts as an agent of the Imperium, so it doesn't break whatever your other allegiance is, which is a neat little trick for taking the Freeblades and sticking them in stuff. And that's all Imperial Knights detachments. So that means you can have a Freeblade now in any other Imperial army and have them count as an agent of the Imperium, which is the like free pass into other armies. So that right there is a neat thing, because if you want to see a Dominus class guy show up, there's no restriction on what the class of the Titan is. That means you could just have an agent of the Imperium show up, and I might have one show up in maybe my Custodes army. Like there's a reason to throw a Freeblade around now, because that means that you can get your allegiance abilities on top of stuff. So that kind of solves you couldn't take a Knight as a auxiliary detachment, and opens the Knights up to being used in other Imperial armies, which I think is kind of neat. It's good and bad. It's good because you get to use your Knights again. It's maybe going to be a little less good over time if you have them showing up in every army again. Because there was a while in 8th edition where a Dominus class Knight was in literally every Space Marine army, every guard army. It's like the Loyal 32 of volcano cannons just showing up everywhere. So we'll see. And then Knight Lances, it's if this detachment's super heavy detachment, or if you're playing a combat patrol battle, and this detachment is a super heavy auxiliary detachment, select one Armiger class, Questoris class, or Dominus class to become a character. If this detachment contains between 1 and 2 Questoris class, or 3 and 5 Armigers, then your command benefits are changed to +3 CP, so no cost. If it contains 3 or more Questoris class, or 6 or more Armiger class, and 1 or more Titanic units, then you get +6 to your CPs. So tons of free CPs for playing Knights at the gate, for having the kind of a specific mix of models, right? So 1 to 2 Questoris, or 3 to 5, between 1 and 2 Questoris, or 3 and 5 Armiger, you get +3. And if you have 3 or more Questoris, so 3 big Knights, which is about 1,500 points, and 1 or more Titanic unit, then you get +6. So that's if you have 3 big Knights in a group, you get +6 CPs. That's pretty good. And if your Warlord's in there, obviously. And then you get your household traditions. So depending upon where you are, you pick a house to be in. And then your house actually dictates whether or not you are Mechanicus or Imperialis. And if you take a household tradition, then you get to make your own house, basically, if you're not using one of the major houses, and then still pick one of those 2 things. Or if you're a Freeblade, then you pick one of those 2 things. You can only ever have 1 household tradition and martial tradition, unless you're a Freeblade, in which case they're all mixed because they're from like various backgrounds. And then your Questor Allegiance Oath, based on being Mechanicus or Imperialis, the whole army gets some like core buffs. So the Mechanicus ones get a Sacristan Pledge, you get +1 to your wound characteristic. If you're Titanic, you get +2, so like you have a 30 wound, I think it's 30, I think you're 28 to start, 30 wound like Dominus class, or a 26 wound Questor class. At the start of each command phase, a model with Questor Allegiance gains 1 lost wound. So you get a wound back every turn. So like, more wounds and get them back faster is a pretty nice, and get them back for free basically, is a pretty nice core rule. And then the Imperialis, add 1 to the advance and charge rules. If you have this oath, each time an advance or charge roll is made, you ignore any or all modifiers to that roll, and each time this model makes a pile-in or consolidate, you move an additional inch. So you have a 4-inch consolidate and pile-in. So speedy or tanky? I feel like the default one is tanky, because being alive longer is just better in 40k, and coming back to life can be a big... Having a wound come back every turn, it can be a significant difference in a turn where like maybe you go from bracketed to not bracketed, or if it just climbs you up a bracket. That's a big deal. I mean, it's basically 5 wounds back over the course of the game, as long as you're wounded on turn 1, and yeah, and that can change the game. That's about 20% of your wounds coming back over the course of the game, as long as you didn't die. All right, the households. I'm not going to go through all the households. They've been expanded to this sort of standard format now, where you've got your oaths, your traditions, then you've got, and these are in addition to the traditions that you get from being Imperialis or Mechanicus. And they have all the same stuff. So you get like a household tradition. So like for instance, Terran is each time an advance or charge roll is made for this model, roll an additional d6 and discard 1 die. Also your +1, also ignore negatives, so you can really charge far. Glory, and there's something to be said about that because the way close combat's kind of laid out for the Knights now is quite different. Glory and Honor for your stratagems, you get +1 attack. You can make a melee attack, you reroll hit rolls of 1. So built-in reroll 1s and +1 attack for a CP. In the fight phase. Warlord trait is reroll advanced and charge rolls, and your relic is a rapid fire battle cannon that's heavy 6 + 6 instead of 2d6. Hey, and then strength 9 -2 3 damage. So +1 strength and flat 3 damage is nice, and it's blast. It's a rapid fire battle cannon. And it's all kind of that. Everybody gets a good gun. Some of the guns from the previous, because the way it was laid out before, obviously, is the old Codex style where all the house guns were mixed into the rest of the relics. It makes it way easier to know what you can pick and not pick now because it's just one relic per house and it's all just on the house page. Griffith's going to get each time model with this tradition fights. If you made a charge move, charge perform a heroic intervention, you get +1 attack. So it gets shock assault. You get Dragon Slayer. Use a stratagem in the shooting phase when you're selected to shoot, or in the fight phase when you fight, until the end of the phase. Each time that model makes an attack, if it targets a vehicle or monster, you're +1 to wound. And so this is basically the same theme as the old Griffith stuff. You can advance and charge with your Warlord, and then your Relic is the Mark of the Lance for a Questoris class only. Whenever you finish a charge move, select one enemy unit within range, engagement, and roll d6 on a d2, 2 to 3, take d3 mortal wounds, 4 to 5 it's 3, and 6 it's d3 + 3. So you have an impact hit basically. Cadmus. You're going to get Household Tradition, Hunters of the Foe. If you make a melee attack, if it's a vehicle or monster, reroll wounds of 1. If the target of the attack contains 6 or more models, when you make this, you can reroll the whole wound roll. So if you attack a unit of 6 or more vehicles or monsters, if the target of that attack contained 6 or more models, you can reroll the whole wound roll. Maybe it's just... it's unless the target of the attack contains any vehicle or monster, you reroll wound rolls of 1. Okay, so you're always rerolling wound rolls of 1, and then unless it was, I wrote that backwards, unless it was, if it has 6 or more, you can reroll the whole wound roll. So you're crushing little things. The Bioscryer Cogitator Array for 1 or 2 CPs. Use at the end of the reinforcement step of your opponent's movement phase, so if stuff shows up. Select a Cadmus model from your army. It's not within engagement range of any enemy units. They can shoot as if it was the shooting phase. But only at eligible units that were set up as reinforcements, and that's within 12 of them when doing so. If that model's Armiger class, it's 1, otherwise it's class 2. So you have a Torvagon show up, not Torvagons, you have Ravager show up, or you have a Trigon show up, and you can just shoot at it for 2 CPs. You're a Veteran of Griffon 4 as your Warlord trait. Each time a melee attack is allocated to this Warlord, you're -1 damage to a minimum of 1, but not cumulative with any other damage reduction. And the Relic's the Hunter's Eye. It's Armigers or Questoris. Each time you make a ranged attack, the target does not receive cover. Hawkshroud, Oathkeepers. The variable damage models with this tradition have double your wounds remaining still. So like basically when you bracket, you have double your remaining wounds for counting the brackets. And you might, you don't heal, but you still have that. Because you're still Imperialis, so you don't get the Questor or Mechanicus healing, but you get still double your wounds. When you're determining the Chevalric Abilities are active, provided your army is not dishonored, models count as having the number of honor points your army currently has +1. So we'll get to that point stuff later. It's my least favorite part of this new book because it requires a whole bunch of bookkeeping round by round, and you have to pick like 2 things to swear to do. It's very like knightly and traditionally, but it's more like psychic bandwidth for playing 40k. And it's just a lot to keep track of on top of like what of my, stratagems can I use and what's my opponent's stratagems capability and what objectives am I trying to do. It's a bit like the katas in the Custodes book where you're just adding a new layer of tracking and bookkeeping. Staunch Allies for 2. If the stratagems use it in the Heroic Intervention step, you can make a Heroic Intervention that's within 12 horizontally and 5 vertically. Of it that made a charge move, you can heroically intervene, and you get to move 6 + d6 when you do so. So, someone charges within 12 of you, you can move 6 + d6 and get into combat. I mean, your giant legs makes sense. Your Warlord traits Duty of the Forsworn, so your command phase. Select a unit in your opponent's army. Each time this Warlord makes an attack against them, you get +1 to hit. So you just pick somebody up and call them out. And your Relics Angel's Grace, basically, if you're an Armiger or Questoris class model, you get a 5+ wound shrug against mortal wounds. And the bearer has the following ability. While a friendly has Hawkshroud Armiger class model within 6 of the bearer, each time they would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound, and a 5+, it's not lost. So you have like a Blessed Knight, has an aura of 5+ wound shrug, and a 5+ wound shrug against mortals. House Mortan, still Imperialis. I think this is the last. Yeah, it's the last Imperialis house. Close Quarter Killers. If you make a melee attack, reroll hit rolls a 1. Pretty cool. Slayers of Shadow. Use the stratagem in your shooting phase when a House Mortan model from your army is selected to shoot, or if you're selected to fight in the fight phase. Until the end of the phase, each time that model makes an attack, ignore all your modifiers to both skill and weapon skill. And then Warlord trait, Legacy of the Black Paul. Each time a ranged attack is made against this Warlord, if it's more than 18 away, you're -1 to hit. Your relic is a Reaper Chainsword called Honor's Bite. Each time an attack is made with this weapon, select one of the 2 following profiles. Now this is the big sort of like change to the Reaper. You've got like a sweep and a stab, and the sweep got rid of all the Knight's tramples. Trample is gone, so we'll talk about that in a minute, but that's a big change. Strike is +6, -5, 6 damage, and your strength 8, so 14, -5, 6. And each time attack is made with this weapon, on an unmodified wound roll of 6, you take 3 mortal wounds in addition to normal damage. And then sweep, you make 3 attacks instead of 1. Every time you attack with it, it's base strength -4, 2 damage. Each time an attack is made with this weapon on a wound roll of 6, the target suffers a mortal wound in addition to normal damage. So you get exploding mortal wounds on your melee attacks with your sword. All right, Mechanicus, House Raven. I do like their symbol, I think, the best. The little like weird, I don't know if it's like a shrine or a cathedral with the cog on it and the lightning bolt. I think it's the coolest symbol for all the Mechanicus houses. Sacristan Pledge. If you all have the Questor Mechanicus ability, so obviously this is, you pick your house, and then if you have that, that's when you gain the Vow of Honor, so you get the Questor, the Allegiance Oath. So you're gonna get, where is it? Yeah, Vow of Honor. It's just repeating the fact that it's there. I just thought it was weird that it was already here. Household Tradition, Relentless Advance. Each time a model with this tradition makes a normal move or advances in your movement phase until the end of your shooting phase, you ignore all modifiers to its move characteristic and advance rolls. Each time it's selected to shoot, it counts as having been stationary. Order of Companions, that's pretty cool. You can run and still shoot. I mean, I really like House Raven because you get all your all the wound bonuses and stuff from the Mechanicus Pledge, but you can still run and then shoot. Normal move or advance, and you count as being stationary. So you kind of are still Imperialis. Order of Companions, it's a requisition stratagem for 1 CP. Use it before the battle. If you're mustering a House Raven model from your, if you're a Warlord server that has the House Raven keyword, select a House Raven Questoris class model and gain the following ability, Order of Companions. Each time this model is selected to shoot or fight, you can reroll 1 hit roll, 1 wound roll, or 1 damage roll in resolving that model's attacks. So basically, you pick like your Sancho Panza for your Don Quixote to get that reference. You only use the stratagem once unless you're playing a Strike Force battle, in which case you can use it twice, or an Onslaught, in which case you can use it 3 times. You can have 2, like, you can have Roland and like the 2 gunslingers go with him. Cuthbert and, I don't remember the other one's name. Warlord trait, Master of the Trial. Each time an attack is made against this Warlord, if that attack has an arm protection characteristic of -1 or -2, it's reduced by 1. And the Banner in Violet, it's your relic. The bearer gains the following ability, Aura, while a friendly House Raven Armiger class within 6 of this model. Each time that Armiger class can make an attack, reroll hit rolls a 1. So you have a reroll hit Aura for your relic. You have a rerolls for your 2 companions that aren't, and it's like that's a requisition. They can still also be requisitioned to have relics and stuff too. And then you get to run and still kind of stationary. So, and you ignore all modifiers to your move characteristic and advance rolls. So, Raven looks real good, just above and beyond everything else, because you get all the Questor Mechanicus cool, like, Sacristan Pledge abilities, and you still kind of get the Imperialis run and charge, or run and shoot, be fast, be speedy stuff. Tyrannus, Omnicized Grace. Each time model of this tradition loses a wound, unless it was lost as a result of a mortal wound, get a 6+ wound shrug. So 6+ non-mortal wound shrug for knights. That's pretty great. Darkest Hour, use stratagem in any phase when a House Tyrannus character in your army is destroyed but does not explode. Place a marker on the battlefield in the center of where it was destroyed. You can choose to roll 1d6 at the end of that phase instead of using any rules other than explodes that are triggered when this model is destroyed. If you do so on a 4+, Set that model back up on the battlefield as close as possible to the marker you placed within 6 of the marker, and not within engagement range of the models, with 3 wounds remaining. If it's not possible to set the model up, it's destroyed. This stratagem can only be used once per battle. If that model's armored class, it costs 1, otherwise it costs 2. So your knight's dead. At the end of your round, your opponent's done everything else, they've killed everything they can, you set it up within 6 for 2 CPs, and it's got 3 wounds left. So you just go boop and come back to life. Pretty good stratagem. Knights of Mars, once per battle after rolling D6 or D3 when making an advance roll, hit roll, wound roll, damage roll, charge roll, or saving throw for this warlord. After any rerolls have been made, you can change the result of one of those dice to a 6 or a 3. Yep, once per battle, just roll 6. And then while your army's virtuous, which is the honor thing again, this warlord can use the above rule once per turn instead of once per battle. So, yeah, just having a 6 on the table. And that's real good for Darkest Hour. Relic Fury of Mars, it's your selected meltagun, twin meltagun, thermal spear, thermal cannon to be equipped with. It has now the Relic for all rules purposes. It's +1 strength, delete all of its abilities, and add +2 to its damage characteristic. So thermal cannon, that's +2 damage. So it's +4 base, +6 at half range. Again, you'll see that in a minute. House Crast, Sacristan Pledge, Cold Fury. Each time a model with this tradition makes a melee attack, an unmodified hit of 6 automatically wounds if the target is Titanic. Then an unmodified hit roll of 5+ automatically wounds. So, whoo, that's real good with multi-shot weapons. My Avenger Cannon on 5s, just auto wounds. And there's no restrictions for that. Doesn't matter what your toughness is. You can be a Warlord Titan. Melee attacks, 5+ auto wounds. Oh, sorry, it doesn't work. It's melee attacks. It doesn't work on the Avenger. I shouldn't have said the Avenger. But your sweep attacks or whatever. Whatever's got the most dice. 5+ auto wound. Controlled Aggression. Use a stratagem at the start of the fight phase. Select 2 Housecrast Armature class models from your army or 1 Housecrast other unit. Until the end of the phase, they get +1 to their attack characteristic. Each time the model is selected to make a melee attack, improve their AP by 1. Your Warlord traits First Knight. Improve the Warlord's weapon skill characteristic by 1 to a maximum of 2+. At the end of the command phase, you can select 1 virtuous Chevalric ability from your oaths until the end of the next command phase. It applies to your Warlord. This means that different ones can be active for your Warlord than the rest of the knights in your army. And they can be neat. The Headsman's Mark. Each time an attack is made by the bearer and they're allocated to a monster or vehicle model, the damage characteristic is increased by 1. So when you're attacking monsters and vehicles, you get +1 damage. Each time the bearer makes an attack against a Titanic unit, you get +1 to the wound roll. And then House of Volker, Firestorm Protocols. Each time a model of this tradition makes a ranged attack, if the target of the attack is the closest enemy unit, they can reroll hit rolls of 1. So shoot the closest thing, reroll hit rolls of 1 just for your whole army. Saturation Bombardment. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a House of Volker model from your army is selected to shoot until the end of that phase. Each time the model that makes a ranged attack on an unmodified hit roll of 6, 1 additional hit is scored. If the unit's an Armature class, it costs 1, otherwise it costs 2. So exploding 6s. Adamantine Knight. Each time an attack is made against this Warlord, an unmodified wound roll of 1 to 3 always fails. And then, so you have Transhuman Knights. This is my Transhuman Knight. Cool. And then the Auric Mask, House of Volker only. Aura, while an enemy is within 12 of the bearer, subtract 1 from the leadership characteristic of models in that unit. While an enemy unit's within 6 of the bearer, subtract an additional 1 from the leadership characteristic of the models in that unit. And each time a combat attrition test is taken, subtract 1 from the test. So -1. So you're big and scary. I mean, Volker is going to be exciting just for the Adamantine Knight Warlord trait. That Warlord trait is amazing. And we're in the martial tradition. So this is the make your own knights thing. If you've chosen a noble household, if your chosen noble household does not have an associated household tradition, you must instead select a martial tradition from the ones here. So basically, if you make up your own house, pick one of these. These are the Questor Imperialis ones. There's also Mechanicus ones. So Imperialis, you could be frontline fighters. Each time a model with a martial tradition makes a ranged attack, if the target's within 18, add 1 to its strength. Glorified History, so basically you're a minor house associated with Terran, Griffith, Cadmus, Mortan, or Hawkshroud. You use their household tradition. If a character model with the martial tradition gains the Warlord trait, they gain that one. You gain access to noble household stratagems that they have, but not their relic. So it looks like you can... Yeah, and you just change the names of that household to theirs. So you get to be part of their house without fully being part of it. Hunter of Beasts, and then each time a model with this martial tradition makes a attack against a monster or vehicle, get +1 to hit. If an attack is made by a model with this martial tradition and allocated to a Titanic model, it's +1 damage. If the model, if you've sworn the Laylo of the Tyrant's Oath later on in the Oath thing, and one or more models of this martial tradition destroys a monster or vehicle model, you get 2 honor points instead of 1. So you double down on monsters and vehicles. Noble combatants, each time a model with this martial tradition fights if all of the attacks target one enemy unit and none of them are made using a sweep or strike profile of a melee weapon. After resolving all those attacks, it can make a number of additional attacks against the enemy equal to the number of attacks that did not reach the inflict damage step. So basically the orcs, if you didn't wound, I get to make those attacks again. If you didn't reach damage, sorry, I get to do those again. And then Paragons of Honor. If every unit in your army has the agents, Imperial Knights, and excluding those with agents, the Imperium are unaligned, then after you've sworn your 2 oaths from your army, you must, if models in your army have this martial tradition, swear additional oaths. You have to swear 3 oaths. This oath applies to all models in your army, and that means that you're pledged troth and travel conditions. So basically you swear all 3 oaths instead of just 2. And then Strike and Shield. Each time a melee attack is made against a model with this martial tradition, a modified hit roll of 1 to 3 always fails. And each time a melee attack with an AP of 1 is allocated to this model, it's reduced to 0. So build your own knightly house. And then Questor Imperialis, you can be Blessed Arms, add 6 to the range characteristic of models of your ranged weapons. If a model has a martial tradition, the Cognus Heavy Stubber is changed to Assault 6. And if a model has this martial tradition, the AP of every Cognus Heavy Stubber is improved by 1. So you get better stubbers and 6 inch to your range. Fealty to the Cog, same thing. You can pick one of those houses. Armed Sacristans. Each time an attack with a damage characteristic of 1 is allocated to a model with this martial tradition, add 1 to their armor saving throws against that attack. That's pretty cool. 2+ saves against... it's almost worth doing on its own. 2+ saves against damage 1. Heavy Boulders are what really shred knights, I've found, having played them a lot. Like, when you've got to take a million little saves, lots of dice is usually what gets the work done. Machine Focus, each time a model with this martial tradition is selected to shoot, you can reroll 1 wound roll and 1 damage roll. And then Steel Sinewed Arm, each time a ranged attack is made with a model with this martial tradition against an enemy with an engagement range, add 1 to your hit roll. And Unremitting, each time a model with this martial tradition is selected to shoot, for the purpose of determining how many attacks are made by weapons with the blast ability, double the number of models that are remaining in that unit. And then Freeblades, so if you have all Freeblades in your army, you can pick to have a Freeblade martial tradition. It can be last of your line. Each time a model with this martial tradition makes an attack with that targets a unit containing 11 or more, you can reroll the hit roll. Each time an Armiger class model with this martial tradition makes an attack that targets a unit containing 6 or more, you can reroll the hit roll. Mysterious Guardian, I like that one where you're like a mystery knight. Because this means that this means that like your single model Freeblade detachment that you can put in any army can use these martial traditions because you're a single like Freeblade, you get this. Mysterious Guardian, if a model with this martial tradition is placed into strategic reserves, it can arrive in the reinforcements of any of your movement phases as if the battle round was 1 higher than it currently is. So you can show up in the first round in reserve. Peerless Warrior, once per battle, when you use an Imperial Knight's Epic Deed stratagem, it costs 0 points. And Mythic Hero, when determining what chivalric abilities are active for Knights models in your army, models of this martial tradition count the number of honor points your army currently has as being 2 higher than it actually is. This may mean that you have abilities active for him, but not for other ones. So what's neat is make your own house stuff here, but if you're just including a super heavy auxiliary with a single Freeblade in it, they can still get this differently from everybody else. So I think it's pretty cool. All right, and then stratagems. I'm not going to dive into these because they're pretty much variations of the current ones, just kind of updated for 6th edition. Like crushes for using your Thunderstrike Gauntlet to roll off strengths and then do mortal wounds and keep rolling. Valiant Last Stand to blow yourself up. Pack Tactics for Armigers. Thunderstomp, nice one to hit, but if you hit the target, unless the target attack is a vehicle or monster, they take 2 mortal wounds and then the attack sequence ends. It's just stuff like that. I don't have a lot of like, there's not a lot to say about it. It's not that different. Like Ion Aegis is just rotate Ion Shields for Dominus class models. So you get a 4+ normal save against ranged weapons for Armiger class models and 6 of them. So it's kind of a cool like, upgraded Ion Shields. You've still got the base Ion Shields, the same thing. So it's 1 for Armigers, 2 for regular Knights, 2 for rotate for Dominus, but that extends out to all the Armigers nearby. So just little things like that. You can throw Wreckage. So other new stuff. Well, Exalted Court. So giving out cool positions to your different knight characters. So basically this is like chapter command for knights. You can be, and there's some that are, there's 5 that are Imperialis and 5 that are Mechanicus, as makes sense. So for Imperialis, Master of Justice, he's 45 points or 2 power. When you select this upgrade, select 1 Imperialis Martial Tradition that no model in your army has. This model gains it. So basically, Master of Justice means you can buy one of the build your own chapter sort of or household things. Noble Exemplar, once per battle when you use an Imperial Knight strategic ploy, if the model you select for that ploy is under the effects of the Bondsman ability, it costs 0. So basically you can influence armigers. Crusade Duty, if this model is your Crusade force, at the end of the battle if you won, roll d6 and a 4+ get a requisition. So that one's neat for getting an additional perk. And the Imperialis ones are kind of neat. So if you wanted to buy for 45 points, the ability for your knight to have, I don't know, let's say probably frontline fighters, +1 strength within 18, that's a good one for your guns. Or strike and shield if you're playing against a melee army, so 1 to 3s always fail. Each time a model is upgraded though, you get the appropriate sort of like rules for them. But you do have to pay all the points. High Monarch, Imperialis character. If this model is included in your army, it must be your Warlord. Each time you gain an honor point on a d6 roll of 5+, you get an extra one. And then Noble Exemplar's ability. Each time a model uses its Bondsman ability, it also applies to every friendly Noble Armiger class model within 6. And then you get a requisition point for being Crusader. It's 30 points. The Monarch Sword, he's like the champion. Quest or Imperialis character only. While another friendly noble household character is within 3 of this unit, enemy models cannot target that character with range attacks unless it's the closest model. So you can shield. That's pretty cool. Noble Exemplar, and it can't be a little knight obviously because it's a questor. Noble Exemplar, while an Armiger class model is under the effects of this model's Bondsman ability, at the start of the fight phase of that Armiger class model is within engagement range of any enemies, it can fight first, so you get to push forward the Armigers. And then Crusade Duty, if your small is part of your Crusade force and it was not destroyed, if it was not destroyed during the battle, at the end of the battle you can ignore 1 failed out of action test for a noble household model from your Crusade force that's treated as being passed. So basically he saves somebody who was destroyed in the battle. The Gatekeeper, it's Quest or Imperialis again. While this model is wholly within your deployment zone, each time an attack is made against this model, a modified win roll of 1 to 3 always fails, so he gets transhuman. The Gatekeeper one's going to be cool because you're going to take it because if you're in your deployment zone, you take the big shooty knight that sits at the back and they can't be wounded on better than 4+. And it costs 35 points, which makes sense. It's a good ability. While the Armiger class model is in range of this objective marker, or of an objective marker, they gain +1 to their toughness if they're in Bondsman's ability range. And then Crusade Duty, if this unit's part of your Crusade force and you're the defender, you start with additional command point. The Herald, each time a friendly noble household model uses a Bondsman ability, if they're within 9 of this Herald, they can select 1 noble household Armiger class model that's within 9 of the Herald for that Bondsman ability to apply to. And then Noble Exemplar, while an Armiger class model is under the effects of this model's Bondsman, they get a 4+ invul. It's nice and increased invul. And then Crusade Duty, so you could actually, and because it's Quest or Imperialis, like Quest or Imperialis can be any size. I'm sorry, it's not Questoris class, it's just Quest or Imperialis. Yeah, not Questoris class. Sorry, they can be any size. I got that wrong. So your little knights can still do it too. While this model is in your Crusade force, each time the Specialist Reinforcement or the Warlord trait requisition, it costs a few requisition points. So that's the first 5 for the Imperialis. I think they're going to be pretty popular. You can still, just because I skipped them fairly quickly because honestly they're exhausting and there's lots of them. You can still Knight Baron, use stratagem before the battle when you're mustering your army. If your Warlord has the Imperial Knight's ability, select 1 Imperial Knight's model from your army, excluding named characters. This model gains the character keyword, and you must determine 1 Warlord trait for them. So you can make another character. You can only use a stratagem once unless you're playing Strike Force, in which case you use it twice, or Onslaught, you can use it 3 times. So you get your Warlord character for free. You can make 2 more characters, which means you could buy 3 of these. Some of them are real popular. The Gatekeeper one, it's going to be real popular. For 35 points, and in an army, 35 points is real easy to find room for. You're usually trying to squeeze, like, once you figure out your configuration of knights, you're usually trying to squeeze in those last few points. It's such a blocky army, it's kind of hard to get all your points on unless you start sticking on weird guns you don't use that often. finding 35 points to sit in your deployment zone and be best wounded on a 4+ will be pretty easy. Princeps, Questor Mechanicus character model only. His models included in your army, it must be your warlord. Each time the army would lose an honor point on a 5+, it's not lost. You get Noble Exemplar. Once per command phase, when this model uses its Bondsman ability, it can select a Noble Household Questoris class model, excluding itself for this ability to apply to instead of an Armiger class. So you can have Knights, not little Armigers, be part of your Bondsman ability. And then Crusade Duty, while this model is in your Crusade force, each time you use the Exalted Court requisition, it costs 1 fewer requisition points. Forge Master, it's for a Mechanicus character only. Now, while the model is wholly within your deployment zone, each time a wound is allocated to it, reduce the damage by 1. Again, going to be real popular. It would be worth taking. So if you're playing Mechanicus and having this be your main army, it'd be worth taking a Gatekeeper Freeblade. Oh, sorry, when you mess around with the exception of Freeblades. Oh, sorry, the Freeblades can't take it. Never mind. No Exalted Court for Freeblades. I was gonna say that'd be a sneaky way to do it. I guess you could pay for them too, and then make them a not Freeblade and just have them be in the army. Where is it? Noble Exemplar, while the Armiger class models under the effects of their Bondsman, and that unit's within your deployment zone, add 1 of the attack's hit roll and 1 of their wound roll, so +1 to hit and wound for your Noble Exemplar. And then your Crusade Duty, while small as your Crusade force, each time you use the Repair and Recuperate requisition, it costs 1 less. Master Technician, Questor Mechanicus character only. When you select this upgrade, select 1 Questor Mechanicus Martial Tradition that no model in your army has. This model gains that Martial Tradition in addition to the other ones. So you can get an additional 1. Noble Exemplar, once per battle, when you use an Imperial Knight's battle tactic, if the model you selected is under the effects of Bondsman, then it costs 0. And then Crusade Duty, if this unit's in your Crusade force and you're the attacker, you get an additional CP. Master of War, if you're a Knight Preceptor, in your command phase, you can recount 1 additional teaching you know that's not already been recounted by a friendly model that turn. So the Preceptor is neat because he just tells stories and gives out abilities now. If this model is not a Knight Preceptor, it gains the Mentor keyword and knows 1 teachings from the Knightly Teachings. And in your command phase, because the Preceptor is basically the priest. Roll a d6 on a 3+, the recounted teachings is inspiring and takes effect. Noble Exemplar ability, each time this model uses its Bondsman ability on a model that's already under the effects of a Bondsman ability, the new ability applies to it in addition instead of replacing it. So you can have double down abilities. And then your Crusade Duty, while it's in your Crusade force, each time the Arts of War duty requisition is used, it costs 0. And Master of the Vox, Questor Mechanicus, while this model's in the battlefield, each time you spend a CP on a 5+, it's refunded. This used to be kind of a warlord trait. Noble Exemplar ability, each time this model uses its Bondsman ability, it can select any Noble Household Armiger class models in the battlefield for that ability, so you can talk to anybody basically instead of having an aura range. And then Crusade Duty, if this unit's part of your Crusade force and you're using the Strategic Reserve rule, you can have the command point cost required to place it into Strategic Reserve. And then we're on to the Freeblade Lance. This is an army of renown, so your whole army has to be Freeblades. That means all your big detachments, little detachments, whatever, they're all Freeblades. They gain the Freeblade Lance keyword. You have access to the Freeblade Lance warlord traits, relics, and stratagems, and a Freeblade Lance models in your army gain the Indomitable Hero's Martial Tradition in addition to any others that they have. And note this is an addition, an exception to the rule that says every Martial Tradition a Freeblade model has must be unique. So you get this on top of it. And it's a very cool blend. Indomitable Heroes, at the start of your command phase, you get a wound back. And then each time you advance or charge, you can ignore all negative modifiers. So it's basically the Imperialis ones, the Mechanicus ones put together. And then Legendary Knight, a Freeblade Lance character can be upgraded to have 1 of the Exalted Court upgrades, even though they are a Freeblade. A Freeblade Lance model is so upgraded, replace all instances of Noble Household with Freeblade Lance. So you can take them as a, you can take 1 of those things basically as Legendary Knight. But only when you're a character. So I guess your whole lance could still have them, because you could take a Freeblade Lance, make them all characters of the requisition, and then give them 3 of these. So I corrected myself and then forgot that they all become Legendary Knights, not just 1 of them. Because they all get Legendary Knight. And then your warlord trait, Echoes from the Past. If this warlord gains the Glorified History Martial Tradition, if it has the Questor Imperialis keyword, or the Cog Martial Tradition, if it has the Questor Mechanicus keyword, as described on page 77 and 78. So you get your Martial Traditions for, where is it, 77 and 78. The core ones here. So you gain, where is it? Glorified History. So you can pick a house to be from or pick a Mars house to be from as your warlord trait. So basically you're from somewhere, you're exiled or from somewhere else. So you get to name your own house and be like exiled from it. Relic, if your army is led by a Freeway Lance warlord, you can, when mustering your army, you can give a finally airborne relic of the Bringer of Justice. It's a Reaper Chainsword. It's +8, so strength 16, -4, 6 damage on a strike, and then +2, -3, 2 damage on a sweep, which is better than a, so it's 10, -3, 2 damage. And when you sweep, you make 3 hit rolls instead of 1. So a very good chainsword. Your stratagems, Brothers and Sisters in Burden for 1 CP. Use a stratagem in your command phase. If your army is dishonored, select 1 Freeway Lance character. Until the start of your next command phase, you have the following ability: Brothers and Sisters in Burden. While friendly Freeway Lance models within 12 of this character, the honored Chevalric ability from your selected oaths are still active for this warlord. This means that different Chevalric traits can be active for other Imperial Knights in your army. So basically, you're going to be honored within 12 of the warlord, even though you're dishonored, because your knight's in exile. Strength from Exile, 1 CP. Use a stratagem in your shooting phase when a Freeblade Lance model from your army is selected to shoot, or in the fight phase when they're selected to fight. Until the end of the phase, while that model is more than 12 from any enemy models, each time it makes an attack, reroll hit rolls a 1 and wound rolls a 1. And then Deeds of Legend for 1 CP. Use a stratagem in any phase when a Freeblade Lance model from your army destroys an enemy vehicle, monster, or character. Select 1 Chevalric ability. Until the end of the battle, this model gains that ability, and it's active for that model regardless of your current level. If you selected it, if you selected the Martial Legacy, you can only reroll rolls made for this model. You can only use a stratagem once. So basically, once you get to like killing something, a vehicle, monster, or character, you can just pick one of the honored abilities to have. And then Favored Knight, use stratagem before the battle. When you're mustering your army, select 1 Freeblade Lance character model from your army that has 1 heirloom relic. That model can have a 2nd relic. Each stratagem for your army must be unique. So basically, carry 2 relics on a guy, which can be cool. So these are the core relics. There's obviously not quite as many as there used to be because a lot of them are divided up into the different houses. Sanctuary, 4+ invul against melees for Questoris or Armiger. Can't get it for Dominus. Ravager, it's the old Reaper Chainsword, +7 strength, so strength 15, boo, -4, 6 damage, +1, -3, 2 damage, and then sweep is still like 3 attacks, so a slightly worse version of Bringer of Justice. Armor of Sainted Ion, can't give it to the Dominus, it's 2+ armor save. The Helm of the Nameless Warrior, it's Questoris class or Imperialist Armiger class. Each time a model makes a melee attack, an unmodified wound roll of 6, that attack inflicts a number of mortal wounds equal to its damage, and the attack sequence ends. That's pretty cool if you can still trample, but you can't. The Helm Dominatus for Questoris only. If you have the Bondsman ability, at the end of each of the command phases, you can select 1 Armiger class model that's affected by the Bear's Bondsman ability. While the Bear is in the battlefield, that ability will affect that Armiger class model until the end of the battle. Or until it's affected by a different Bondsman ability, whichever happens first. So you can basically plant the Bondsman ability down and leave it there. The Endless Fury, that's the old Avenger Gatling Cannon. It's Assault 12 plus D6. Strength 6 -3, 2 damage. The Bastard's Helm for Armiger class only. Each time the bear makes an attack, add 1 to its wound roll. The bear cannot be affected by any Bondsman abilities or Knightly Teaching, and the bear gains the following. The Bastard's Helm. In your command phase, you can select 1 friendly Armiger class model within 12 of the model until the start of your next command phase. Each time that Armiger class model makes an attack, it gets +1 to wound. So basically, you're like a Jon Snow of Imperial Knights, which is pretty cool. All right, so the Mark of the Omnissiah, it's Mechanicus only for Questoris or Armigers. At the start of each of your command phases, the model is repaired and regains D3 lost wounds. Each model can only be repaired once per turn. Note that this model has the Sacristan Pledge Quest for Allegiance out. That means it starts each of your command phases with D3 + 1. So, kind of cool relic. Banner of Mechanicus Macarius Triumphant. You become Obsec, even if you're not an Armiger class. If every other model in your army has the Imperial Knights keyword, except for agents and unaligned, then at the start of the battle, you gain an additional honor point, but if you're destroyed, you lose an honor point. You start with 2 instead of 1. The Mentor's Seal for Preceptors only. The bearer has 1 additional teaching, and each time the bearer counts a teaching, you get +1 to see if it's inspiring. So your prayers basically get +1. You pray on 2+. The Heart of Ion. It's Mechanicus Questoris or Questor Mechanicus Armigers only. Once per turn at the start of your command phase, the bear can use this relic. When it does, the bear takes a mortal wound, and you must select one weapon that the bear is equipped with, and until the start of your next command phase, you get +1 move, +1 advance and charge rolls, and each time the bear makes an attack with a weapon, you get +1 to the wound roll. So you basically, you juice yourself for the turn. Paragon Gauntlet replaces your Thunder Strike, ×2, -4, 9 damage, or +2, -2, 4 damage as a sweep. It's a very high damage sweep. And you make 2 attacks instead of 1, and an unmodified wound roll of 6, and vulnerable saves can't be taken. So the sweep ability on the Paragon Gauntlet's pretty great. Traitor Pyre got better. Heavy 3d6, 8 -2, 2 damage for a Valiant, and it's auto hitting and an unmodified wound roll of 6. You can't make invulnerable saves. So holy crap, they turned Traitor's Pyre to 11. Call's Wrath, it's the big Plasma Decimator. It's heavy 2d6, 8 -4, 3 damage, blast. And then Judgment, Storm Spear Rocket Pod, heavy 3, 8 -2, D3 +3, and you can target things that aren't visible to you. All right, Warlord Traits and Knightly Teachings. These are your prayers. Again, basically the Imperial Knights got the Priests, and the Chaos Knights got the Psychers. So Imperial Knights characters, you get Cunning Commander, 5+ command points back, blessed by the Sacristans. Each time you make a ranged attack with an unmodified wound roll of 6, the attack inflicts a mortal wound on the target in addition to normal damage. On Bulwark, 4+ against ranged. Knight Seneschal, add 1 to your attack characteristic, even if your army is dishonored. The honored Chevalric ability from your selected oaths are still active for the Warlord. And then Land Strider, +2 move. Each time the advanced roll is made for this Warlord, treat rolls of 1 to 2 as 3 instead. And each time a charge roll is made for the Warlord, treat each dice roll of 1 to 2 as 3 instead. Finally, Revered Knight, at the start of the fight phase, if this Warlord is within engagement range of any enemy units, it fights first. And if every unit of your army has the Imperial Knight keyword, and this Warlord is part of your army at the start of the battle, you get additional honor point, but if it's destroyed, you lose 1. So basically, it's the banner, but a Warlord trait. Knightly Teachings, and so we've got the Virtue of Courage. If this teaching is inspiring, while a noble household armature class is within 6 of the Mentor, each time a model makes an attack, a modified hit roll of 6 does an additional hit. Oath of Justice. While inspiring armature class models within 6 of the Mentor, if this model has been affected by any Chevalric abilities, you count as having 2 more honor points. The Folly of Mercy, if this teaching is active, select 1 Noble House armature class model within 12 of the Mentor. This model can perform an action and make a normal move in shooting without the action failing. The Knight's Faith, this teaching is inspiring while a Noble Household armature class within 6 of this Mentor. Each time an armature class model would lose a wound, on a 6 it's not lost. And if you're under the effect of a Bondsman ability, it's not lost on a 5+ instead. The Warrior's Hope, if this teaching is inspiring, select 1 Noble Household armature class model within 12 of the Mentor. Select 1 Oaths of the Code Chevalric ability that's not active, becomes active, and it gains all the relevant Chevalric abilities of that level of honor. Note that this oath is active even if every other unit from your army does not have the Imperial Knight's keyword, so you can do that one all the time. And then Wisdom of Nobility, if this teaching is inspiring, select 1 Noble Household armature class within 12 of the Mentor. Each time that armature class is selected to use a Bondsman ability, you can select 1 other Noble Household armature within 6 of that model. Both those armature class models are affected by the Bondsman ability, so you can double down on Bondsman stuff. All right, here we go. We got our chapter approved rules. So there's a grand total of 4 different possible match play secondaries you can take here. Remember, you can only take 1 now in match play from your book. The rest have to come from the seasonal battle pack. So the Purge one is Duel of Honor. If you take it before the battle, after you've deployed your armies, you must identify your opponent's Warlord and the 2 units with the highest point value other than your opponent's Warlord on the roster. At the end of the battle, for each identified enemy unit that is destroyed, you score a number of victory points. If that unit was destroyed during the battle by an Imperial Knights unit from your army, the number of victory points scored depends on how it was destroyed. So Honor of the King, if it was destroyed by a melee attack by your Warlord, you get 5 VPs. Personal Combat, the unit was destroyed by a melee attack by any other Imperial Knight model, 4. Cowardly Cur, the unit was destroyed because it was not on the battlefield at the end of the battle, and so counts as destroyed. So note, this does not apply if the enemy is embarked on a transport that itself is on the battlefield at the end of the battle. So like, if they don't deep strike in, or like any of the ways that your opponent could screw you out of killing it, you get 4. And then Inglorious Demise, any other way, it's 3. So basically 15 if the Warlord kills them all in melee, 12 if somebody else kills them at any point in melee, and then 3 if they just die like dogs to your guns. At the end of any battle round in which Honor to the King or Personal Combat was achieved, you gain an honor point. At the end of the battle, if the enemy's warlord has been destroyed, you gain an additional victory point, but you must reduce the number of victory points you've earned from the secondaries by 1 for each of the unidentified units that's not been destroyed. For example, so basically, you gotta kill all 3 or you lose 1 overall, but if the warlord kills the warlord, you get an extra 1. No mercy, no respite. If you select this objective at the end of each battle round, you have 6 honor points. Or if you have more honor points than you did at the start of the last battle round, gain 2 VPs. So that caps this one at 5, goes to 10. At the end of the battle, if your army's virtuous, gain 3. If your army's honored, gain 2. If your army is dishonored, reduce the number that you got by 3 to a minimum of 0. So you can max out at 13 for this one on a 5-turn game. And it plays into the honor system, so we'll get to that again. Battlefield Supremacy, yield no ground. If you select this objective at the end of the turn, you score victory points as follows. Score 2 if you control half or more of the total number of objectives on the battlefield, and 1 or more Imperial Knights models from your army is within range of each of them. Score 2 victory points if no enemy units, excluding aircraft, are wholly within your deployment zone, and score 1 VP as long as no Imperial Knights units from your army ended that turn closer to your battlefield edge than they started, and no Imperial Knights units from your army fell back during that turn. That's so much bookkeeping. Ugh. So, yeah, it's kind of the oaths for Space Marines, but you gotta make sure nothing moved forward, and your opponent can screw out of it pretty fast. Shadow Operations, renew the oaths. If you select it, the Imperial Knights units from your army can attempt the following action. Renew the oaths. Action, 1 Imperial Knight model from your army can start to perform this action at the end of your movement phase if it's within 6 of the center of the battlefield. This action is completed at the end of your turn, provided units is still within 6. You score 3 VPs if it was completed by a non-Titanic model. 4 if it was completed by Titanic, 1 additional if it's character. You must roll 1 die, and a 4+, you get an honor point. So you complete 4. 5 if it was character. So if your character goes in the middle of the board and does an action, and there is a way to do actions other than having them fail and still shoot, you can get 5. So Shadow Operations feels like it might get used. I don't know, none of these are particularly amazing and easy to do, but they're all fairly interactive. No Mercy, no Respite. The Honor of the House probably is the big one. All right, the Crusade Rules. So you swear a quest, which I think is fun. You have to decide what you're going to do. All of them will swear to the quest, like recover a relic or a call to arms, settle a grudge, and then you're trying to do those knightly deeds. You gain qualities and burdens when you're quest sworn, and this has basically replaced all the qualities and burden stuff that was in the Freeblades section of the old book. Your agendas to do so, special requisitions for knights, new battle traits, like your armigers, your proficient learner, and your battle scars. All right, and there we go. So choose a noble household or a quest or allegiance. Your ion shields give you a 5+ invul still against range attacks, and a super heavy walker, you can declare a charge if you fall back, made a normal move, advance, or fall back. And then Bondsman Abilities. Some Imperial Knights have a Bondsman ability, which can be used to affect friendly models. A model can only be affected by 1 Bondsman ability at a time. If an Imperial Knight model is affected by a Bondsman ability when it's selected to be affected by another one, it gets replaced. While an Armiger class model is being affected by it, if your army is either honored or virtuous, in addition to the other effects, each time an attack is allocated to that model, subtract 1 from its damage. So you want to keep these bonds up because it's -1 damage to damage all of your Armigers. You can only be affected by 1 Bondsman ability at a time, and when you're honored, then -1 damage. All right, so here's the big bookkeeping thing. There's 4 oaths that you can swear. You start with 1 honor point at the start of the game. You max at 6. If you have 6, you get all the bottom abilities. If you have 1 to 4, you get all the bottom ability, the top abilities. The pledge is what you have to do. The top is if something bad happens, you lose honor points. So that's the basic. So you're honored as long as you have 1 to 4. You're virtuous, you have 5 to 6. You have to pick 2 of these at the start of the game. No choice. You have to pick them. So this isn't like an optional thing. This is like, I got to remember how to do this thing. And some are easier to do than others. So Oath, protect those in need. All of your knights get to perform a heroic intervention. They gain an honor point. So your character knights that heroically intervene, you get an honor point. An Imperial Knight model from your army made a charge move against an enemy unit that started charge engaged with another friendly unit. You get an honor point. That's how you do it with your pledge. If 1 or both of the following happen, you lose an honor point. An Imperial Knights model from your army was eligible to declare a heroic intervention and didn't do it. If your charge phase, if 1 or more Imperial Knights model from your army were eligible to declare a charge against the unit that started to engage with somebody, but none of them did. So you got to do the charge. When you're honored, selfless heroes, you can make 6-inch heroic interventions. And then if you're virtuous, if this model has a Bondsman ability, you can use it 1 additional time each of your command phases. So additional Bondsman. Defend the Realm. If at the end of your turn you control more objectives than your opponent does, and then at the end of the battle round gain an honor point. Your Troth. If at the end of your turn you control less than you did at the start of the turn, you lose an honor point. I'll probably take that one because it's just easy to remember. Your Honored ability, Duty and Wisdom. At the start of your command phase, the Battleforge CP is 2 instead of 1. And Virtuous ability, Duty and Honor. This model has the Obsect ability, and if the model already has this ability, it counts as 3 additional models. So your little guys count as 8, your big guys count as 13. Refuse no challenge. At the end of each battle round, if 2 or more enemy units have been destroyed by melee attacks from Imperial Knights, gain an honor. If any Imperial Knights units from your army fell back, you lose an honor. Ugh. And you want to fall back so you can shoot your guns. Ugh, I'll never take that one. Honored ability, Noble Display. Each time this model makes a melee attack, if it made a charge move, was charged, or performed a heroic intervention, add 1 of the attack's hit roll. And then your Mighty Display is your virtuous ability, reroll advance and charge rolls for this model. So you get shock assault +1 to hit. Or you can reroll advance and charge rolls. And then Laylo the Tyrants, if you destroy a warlord, character, monster, or vehicle with a melee attack, you gain an honor point. If less than 2 enemy units have been destroyed by attacks made by Imperial Knights units from your army during the battle round, then you lose an honor point. And then your honor ability is Martial Pride. Each time you selected to shoot and fight, you can reroll 1 hit roll or 1 wound roll. And Virtuous ability, Martial Legacy. Once per battle round, you can make an advance to hit roll, or wound roll, or saving throw for an Imperial Knight model from your army. You can change the result to a 6. So, Defend the Realm, Laylo the Tyrants, probably the ones I'm always going to take because they're easy to remember. The bonuses are nice, like 2 CPs instead of 1. A free hit or wound roll, reroll for each model each turn. And yeah, try and kill 2 things every turn and keep holding more than your opponent is pretty easy to remember. But lots of stuff leans into this virtuous and honored thing. So get a big D6, stick it next to the table, try and remember all this stuff. The Protect Those in Need and Refuse No Challenge I probably won't take. All right, core stuff. I'm not going to go individually sort of model by model through these. I'm just going to sort of show some changes. Most of the changes in here have been done to reflect consistency and make stuff a bit more consistent. So for instance, your Armiger Helverins, Armiger Autocannon, Heavy 2d3, Flat 3 damage, pretty much the same. Melt-A-Guns, Thermal Spear, 9 minus 4 d6, plus 2 if it's short, kind of the same. Your Reaver Chain Cleaver was already kind of how the new melee weapons are, so plus 4 minus 4, 3 damage for a strike, and then 2 attacks instead of 1, so 8 attacks at strength minus 3, so 6 minus 3, 1 damage if you sweep. Each time, if you're an Armiger Squadron, the first time this unit is set up on the battlefield, if this unit contains more than 1 model, each model must be set up within 6, and from that point onward, they're more than 1. Knights Errant, all right, so the thermal cannons changed quite a bit. Heavy 2d3 instead of d6 shots. I think that was already in the errata. 9 minus 4, d6 plus 2, d6 plus 4 at half range. But the Titanic feat are the big change here. Just your attacks, 4 attacks, minus 2 damage. I don't know why you'd ever do Titanic feat attacks, because your weapons don't get blown off. The Reaper Chainsword, I guess if you had 2 guns, you'd have to. The Reaper Chainsword is strike plus 6 minus 4, 6 damage, so strength 14 minus 4, 6 damage, and the sweep is going to be times 3 attacks, so 12 attacks, minus 3, 2 damage, so consistent instead of D3 like the feat were, and minus 3 instead of minus 2. So the Reaper Chainsword got way better than the feat. You might still use the feat if you have double guns. The Night Warden, the Avenger Gatling Cannons, exactly the same. Reaper Chainsword and the Stomps. Your Bondsman Abilities, Errant's Duty. In your command phase, you can select 1 friendly Noble House Armiger class model within 12. Until the start of the next command phase, the Armiger class model is eligible to charge if it advances, and you add +1 to advance and charge rolls. The Warden's Duty, Bondsman. In your command phase, you can select 1 friendly Noble Household within 12. Until start of your next command phase, the Armiger class counts as 10 models for objectives. So they have a theme now, right? Fight and charge, hold objectives, the Warden. Which is kind of cool because it means the names mean something. The Crusaders, Avenger Gatling Cannon and Thermal Cannon can also be upgraded for the Rapid Fire. It's the same loadouts as before, basically. He's got Crusader's Duty. In your command phase, select 1 friendly Noble House Armiger class within 12 until the start of your next command phase. Its ballistic skill goes up by 1, so 2 plus ballistic skill. Lots of ways to bounce that into 2 of them as well. So the Crusader sitting back and shooting is pretty powerful. The Gallant, which is the double weapons one, does not have, still has 2 plus weapon skill. Reaper Chainsword, the Thunderstrike Gauntlet, ×2, -3, 8 damage. No -1 to hit. Yay! And then sweeping with it is +2, -2, 3 damage with 2 attacks instead of 3. So I think the Reaper Chainsword is still better against hordes, but yeah, strength 16, -3, 8 flat damage for the Thunderstrike Gauntlet is legit. On a 2+, he will walk up and just Rochambeau a super hemi for like a bunch of reasons. He's got Gallant's Duty. In your command phase, select an armature within 12 and improve its weapon skill by 1. Also, all the explodes now are 2d6 range, d6 mortal wounds, which is fun. The Paladin, so the Cog is Heavy Stubber. It's Assault 4, 36 inch range. I think that's new. The Questor Iron Hail Heavy Stubber is Heavy 4, 4 -1. So it means that the, I think the battle cannon is... Yeah, if it's a Mechanicus, it gets the Cognus. If it's Imperium, it gets the Iron Hail. So different guns sticking out of the battle cannon now. Battle cannons, flat 3 damage. Hooray! 2d6, 8 -2, flat 3 instead of d3. Consistency, like I said, is across this whole thing. The Paladin's Duty, Bondsman, in your command phase, you can select one friendly noble household armature within 12 until it's serving next command phase. Each time it makes an attack reroll, hit roll, and wound rolls of 1. Whew! Knight Castellan. So this is the big mammoth jam. It's Plasma Decimator, heavy 2d6, 8 -4, 2 damage, and then supercharged to 9 -4, 3 damage. But you take mortal wounds. 2 mortal wounds, sorry, for each one. And you still have 28 wounds total. Shieldbreaker missiles are still strength 10, -4, d6. Each time it's selected to shoot, it can only make attacks with 1 missile, and it can only shoot the Shieldbreaker missile it's equipped with once per battle. Each time it's made, invulnerable saves can't be made against it. Twin Meltas are Twin Meltas. Siegebreakers are flat 2 damage now. Volcano Lance, heavy d3, strength 16, -5, d6 +8 damage blast. So 9 to 14 damage on that thing. It does not have any kind of... You don't have Bondsman on the big boys. They don't get any Bondsman abilities. They care not for the little guys. And the Valiant Conflagration Cannon, 3d6, 7 -2, 2 damage, auto hits. And the Thundercoil Harpoon, strength 16, -6, 10 damage. Each time the attack is made against a monster vehicle, add 1 to its hit roll. And each time an attack is made with this weapon and is allocated to the model, that model suffers 3 mortal wounds in addition to normal damage. So if it just hits... Sorry, each time an attack made with this weapon is allocated to a model. A model suffers 3 mortal wounds. So it's just allocated. You don't have to wound. I hit you, and it's allocated, take 3 mortal wounds. So you do 13 damage with it, potentially. And then Siegebreaker cannons are the same. The Preceptor, our little, like, Chaplain Knight. He's basically the same. The Las Impulsor, 2d6 shots, 6 -2, 2 damage with blast. On high intensity, strength 12, -4, 4 damage with d6 shots. Multi-laser, heavy 4, 6. He's got a Reaper Chainsword and Titanic Feet. And then he does 1 nightly teaching. In your command phase, this model's on the battlefield. You can return to 2 teachings it knows. On a 3+, they're inspiring and take effect until your next command phase. So basically, you can shout 2 things at the little guys. And then Canis Rex. He's got his Hector's pistol. If he gets out, strength 5, -2, 2 damage. When he wants to lean out and shoot somebody. Las Impulsors, the same. Multi-lasers, the same. Freedom's Hand, strength 16, -4, 8 damage. Unmodified wound rolls of 6 do d3 mortal wounds in addition to normal damage. You make 2 hit rolls instead of 1 when you strike. Oh, sorry, that's on sweep. It's the next paragraph down. These are kind of blended. 2 attacks, +2, -2, 3 damage. And then Sir Hector, if Canis Rex is destroyed but does not explode, set up Sir Hector within 3 inches of Canis Rex. Sir Hector is treated as a passenger disembarking from a destroyed transport. Assuming he survives, Sir Hector can use his own profile and his own keywords below. He's equipped with his pistol, but does not have ion shields or super heavy abilities. Yeah, he's got 2+, 2+, weapon skill, ballistic skill. He's strength toughness 3, 4 wounds, 3 attacks, leadership 9, and a 4+ save. Makes him hilarious. And he knows 3 nightly teachings and can recount up to 2 on a 3+. He's got Chainbreaker. Each time Canis Rex makes an attack against a non-Imperium unit, on an unmodified hit roll of 6, an additional hit is scored. And Legendary Freeblade. Once per battle round, you can reroll 1 hit roll, wound roll, or charge roll for Canis Rex. So, cool model. And I like that you actually get to use Sir Hector. He's a cool miniature. He pops out. And that's it. So there we go. Halverins are 155, +5 for a Meltagun, 145 for an Armiger Warglaive. Canis Rex is 440. Castellans are 595. Crusaders are 485. 425 for Errants, 400 for Gallants. Paladins are 425, 420 for Preceptors, 585 for a Valiant, 435 for a Warden. So you're looking at, with the fixings, they're all roughly 500 points for the Questoris, roughly 600 points for the Valiant with the Siegebreakers, and for the Castellan, 610. So, and then of course the court costs on top of that. That's it. There we go. Imperial Knights. More for the Knights. I mean, the quality of life stuff, just having their own like obsec bonuses, having the ability to count as more models, having the ability to mix and match a bit more, the Freeblades being a bit more ascendant with the Army of Renown. It's all good stuff. Brings them into the edition. It gives them lots more options than they had before. I like the priestly teachings. I like the bondsman stuff. It was all just kind of like background material and stuff that was talked about before, but didn't really actually have like an in-game impact. I like that it has an in-game impact now. The honor and vows thing, it's super thematic. I love that stuff. I just feel like layered on top of all of the sort of like the mental load of 40k right now with the stratagems and the secondaries and the round by round scoring and just like the bookkeeping and keeping track of the game. The honor system was just something I liked my army because it was simple and it's just like one more thing to remember. That might be a personal thing though. People might be more excited about than I am. The psychic drain of or load of 40k is getting very high, with just the amount of books and stuff that you need and the amount of like knowing what your opponent's stratagems might mean for you in the game, and how are things layered together, and even just like composing your army initially is getting heavy. And so the Knights are they got an extra layer, which is cool. Some more stuff to do. But yeah, the round by round bookkeeping stuff I could have probably done without. It could have just been a thing that you just picked. You know what I mean? Like it didn't need to be scored round by round. It was just like a yes no question, like over the course of the game. Are you honorous or not? Or are you virtuous or dishonored or whatever? I'd probably been fine with that too. So anyway, there it is. Codex Imperial Knights. I'm stoked to get them on the table. I'm going to paint my Armiger class stuff at some point. I also really want to paint the Chaos Knights, which you can see the review for today as well. So until next time, I'm Ash. Have a good day. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that video. There are tons of other games already recorded for you to watch. Click over to my channel page if you haven't already, and have a look to the dozens of playlists full of videos. I guarantee you'll discover a game you haven't seen played before. I put out new videos 7 days a week, and every day is themed to a different genre as I continue to explore the wider world of gaming. Of course, none of that's possible without you, the viewer, so click a like and subscribe if you'd like to stay on top of what's happening here daily. My two kids and I are massively grateful to be able to have the flexibility of this job so I can always maximize my time with them. If you want to support me continuing to put out this content, it's only possible because of my amazing backers on Patreon who support the studio, equipment, and model cost, as well as being how I make the bulk of my living. You can also help out by buying a t-shirt through Spreadshirt, a measuring gauge or widget from Deathray Designs, or buying one of my games and supplements like Last Days, Gamma Wolves, and Blaster. As a way of showing my appreciation, patrons get early access to new games and supplements that I write throughout the course of the year. Huge thanks for watching, it really does help out, and happy gaming.